And good morning to you, LA Pipe Smoker. Back after being away for, I don't know, how long was it? About 10 months, I think. Did you notice a few things have changed? My glasses, probably, if you can, yeah, those are new. I sat on the older ones and destroyed them, so it was kind of a interesting experience. So, also, I've taken my summer hat on and taken away my woolen flat cap. It's been kind of hot out here if you haven't kept up with the news. Big news for me is I'm now officially retired. I retired, what was it, June the 10th was my last day. And so that's been something, a teaching career of about 35 years. And one day you just kind of go home and that's it. So I'm adjusting to, being retired, I guess, and establishing my schedule and doing a lot more reading and a lot more writing than I ever had time for. I can tell you one thing, I'm not missing grading the essays. I do have a number of comment forms I need to fill out for seniors this year for their counselors so they can have information to include for their college application. So I'm not completely done yet. That's still kind of dogging me into my retirement. Not really dogging me, it's actually a pleasure. The kids who ask for recommendations and stuff are all really good young scholars. So, a few things. First of all, I'm smoking a pipe that has become my favorite the last month or so. And I've never heard of this. It's an American, that's what it's called, the brand name American. And it has a little star, can't really see that, it has a little star on the stem embedded in lucite. The stem itself is my favorite is the vulcanite fishtail. And I really like vulcanite. It's really good to kind of bite down on. It's a softer kind of stem. Can't stand some of the new plastic stems. I mean, it feels like putting a baby's toy into your mouth. This is a really nice pipe. It's light, good briar, beautiful grain on it, and it smokes wonderfully. I've also kind of stumbled across a type of tobacco. So Mac Baren Vanilla Flake, this is 16 ounces. And I've been smoking that for the last 2 or 3 months as my single brand, which it's something new for me as well. Usually I have 3 or 4 brands that I go to, but this one has been so satisfying and just so enjoyable that I have been smoking this. Not something that I'm really used to doing, just smoking a single brand. I have my cellar and a bunch of other brands lying around. I'm not the least motivated to crack them open. I thought I would be, but it's like anything in pipe smoking. You do what you enjoy. You do what works for you, and this works for me right now. Let me light this up. I was planning on doing a video right away after I retired, but it was a lot busier than I thought after I retired. There was a lot of stuff with my pension that I had to arrange and get everything settled. Tons of stuff to clean in my apartment, just kind of to settle in. And my poor cat is now having to deal with me 24/7. And so she's kind of adjusting too. One thing I did want to show you, a student made this for me. LA pipe smoker. And he wrote on the back, "Hey, Mr. Skull, thank you for always pushing me to apply myself and reach new heights. You have been one of the best teachers I have ever had. I'm looking forward to seeing you upload to your YouTube some more." a little motivation to do this. Why an 18-year-old would want to watch me on a pipe video is beyond me, but I'll take what I can get. He says, "Enjoy your retirement. Cheers. Class of 2022. He's Sean. Great kid." And look, he did this in his robotics class with some sort of laser printer or something that they're doing nowadays. If the camera's shaking a little bit, I have a mic on, and it's kind of taut, so hopefully it won't be too distracting. I'll try not to lean back as much. So retirement, those of you watching who are retired probably can identify. I don't know. I loved what I was doing. I loved teaching. And so teaching is a very intense type of occupation. You're dealing with hundreds, if not thousands, of interactions with people all day long. You're constantly switching gears, and that's just the kind of the so-called performance element of it. Then the other element is the substantial amount of clerical work you have to do, documenting things and showing up for different meetings, planning your lessons. You know, even after 35 years of teaching, I still redid my courses every year that I taught them. And so, you know, it takes up a lot of time. And when you go home, I would spend, between 2 and 3 hours every night, you know, grading papers and adjusting the course according to how I think things were going. So it was pretty intense. And then having all of that just stop was okay, because I was used to summer. So I retired at the end of the school year, so we had summer. So, you know, that wasn't a big deal because I was used to that. End of the school year, go on summer. So that wasn't so much it. It was more of a thing when everybody started back to school. And I realized, you know, I'm not going back. In the back of my mind, I kept feeling, you know, in the weeks leading up to the beginning of school this year, I was thinking, I should be doing stuff. I mean, I've been lying around reading this book all day. It just kind of felt like I should be doing something else. And of course, I had nothing to do. There were no plans. There was nothing to do except whatever I wanted to do. And so I thought that was kind of dangerous. So I guess I resolved to do something. I'm going to volunteer at a hospital. I figured you need to keep yourself active, and you know, I think in a service mode, especially if you live alone as I do, you know, it's very easy to kind of go inward and only see the world from your perspective and get kind of selfish and stuff. You need, especially single people who live alone, I think they need time to connect outside of themselves in some kind of service role. It really doesn't make any difference what it is, as long as, you know, you're serving other people. Of course, I have my parish as a pastor, and that keeps me busy as well. So anyway, I hope all has been well with you over the last, it's been about 10 months since I made my last video. I got a new phone, a Pixel 6, so I went from a Pixel 2 to a Pixel 6. Frankly, I don't notice much of a difference. You know, I was like, now I have 5G. I never see the 5G. It's always the same LTE, and the bars are the same. I mean, it's I don't know. It is what it is. You know, it allows me to make my videos and to distract myself from time to time. One of the things I was doing in preparation for my retirement is I was rereading an article in the American Scholar, and it was written by a former teacher of mine who passed away on an untimely death a number of years ago. He drowned in the Outer Banks of Virginia. His name was Lionel Basney, and he was a true scholar and an amazing person. And he was getting to the point where he was contemplating retirement. He never made it to retirement. And I was in, where was I? It was years ago. I was up in Seattle. And I went to the Elliott Bay bookstore. I think that's still around. Great bookstore, right off of Pioneer Square, I think, if I remember correctly. At any rate, I was just, you know, leafing through that edition of American Scholar. So this was the winter 2002 edition. And lo and behold, I see my former teacher's name. And the title of the article was Teacher, 11 Notes. And so I bought the issue, went over to Pioneer Square, sat down and read the beautiful essay. He's a wonderful writer, poetic, almost like a Truman Capote, not quite, but has a real sense of rhetoric and a real beautiful voice. So he's reflecting on contemplating retirement. And there was one particular passage that really stood out to me. And I think this sums up, at least for me, retirement. He wrote, "And what will I do when these brief, regular performances are no longer requested?" In other words, teaching in front of students in a classroom. "No one has told me this, but I suspect that the most frightening thing about retirement may be the sudden stillness of one's own voice. A few of us, very few, will be invited to schools and conferences to go on talking and put off the day of silence. Most of us will just have to go home and be silent. How will we get along with ourselves?" And of course, that's that's a big thing, when you're no longer called to teach. I guess making videos, doing the YouTube thing is a way of speaking, of continually to speak, but I'm not teaching, I'm here for a friendly chat, or at least a semblance of a friendly chat, Teaching's very different. Maybe it should be more this way. Go up to the front of the classroom, you sit down, you light up your pipe, and you start going on about the subject. I rarely use notes when I lecture. The material after 35 years of teaching it. I obviously would be in a great deal of trouble if I lit up my pipe in my classroom. It always amazed me how many of my students kind of would walk up to me and say things like, "So, LA pipe smoker?" I think they're expecting me to respond with, No, that's not me. That's my evil twin." They said, "So are you advocating that we smoke pipes?" I said, "How could I advocate that you smoke a pipe when you're too young to smoke a pipe?" And apparently a couple of them had watched some of my videos and taken notes. They said, "Oh yeah, but in this video, you said you were, I think, 16 or 17 when you started smoking." I said, "Yeah, I was, but that's not for you." they're just a constant source of amusement. But if any of them eventually, when they're old enough, end up smoking a pipe and enjoying it as I have, good for them. So, this pipe tobacco is particularly wonderful. It's definitely aromatic. It's Vanilla Flake, Mac Baren's Vanilla Flake, but it's not overwhelming. It's the kind of tobacco. I guess what really sold me on this was, first of all, it's a pleasure to smoke. But when I finish smoking and I come back into the room, it has this real beautiful aromatic smell to it that's not too overpowering. And it smells like somebody's been smoking a pipe. And that's kind of what I was going for. And I enjoy that a great deal. So, what have I been doing with myself? I've been doing a lot of reading. I've gone back to the Greek philosophers, that I had in undergraduate and graduate school. I was able to, and am able to kind of go through them more slowly, looking at things and kind of recording my reactions. When I was in school, I took a lot of notes. And so it's nice to look at the notes and the things that stand out for me now, as opposed to the things that stood out for me back then. Some very interesting distinctions. In particular, I think there's this philosopher named Epictetus, who was a philosopher of the Stoic school. And going through my notes and responding to his discourses, actually it was a part of the discourses called the Enchiridion. It's a manual or a condensed version of his teaching made by one of his students, and more of an outline. And I remember one of my responses to this Enchiridion was, who in God's name would want to do this? Who would want to be a Stoic? Oh my God. And of course, it's interesting because later on that year, I remember trying to be a Stoic, or at least what I thought was a Stoic, over the course of the year. And of course, I failed miserably. I don't think I was disciplined enough, at least not according to Epictetus. I think, if I look at myself and think about how I kind of operate in my own personality, which is what I think, a lot of people gravitate towards certain religious beliefs, certain philosophical beliefs. I believe it has a lot to do with one's personality, just who you are as a person, the things you like, the things you don't like. Even within a religion, the conservatives all seem to share similar personality traits, as well as the liberals typically share personality traits that kind of would make that particular bias appealing to them. And so I would definitely position myself, if I was an early kind of Greek or Roman philosopher, I think I would go more with the Epicureans. And they're not just like pleasure rules. It's a little bit more nuanced than that. So, but I think that's would be more my thing, less a thing of a Stoic. Even though I'm studying right now, I'm studying Stoicism and I'm loving it. I appreciate it for its the beauty of its system, of the way it explains human nature, the way it accounts for why we do what we do, the kind of what will be the best way of putting this, kind of proto psychology, because back then psychology didn't really exist. It's a kind of a 19th century phenomenon, but definitely people used these kind of insights. Shakespeare, certainly had a natural sense of psychology in the development of some of his characters, the complexity, right? And that's what really makes a character interesting. They're not just one-dimensional, that they have, tension. They have opposing things. It's the Boy Scout who is top of his, troop and looked to, and goes home and tortures animals. I mean, that's kind of a huge contradiction, but that's what makes a character interesting, are these contradictions. So anyway, that's what I've been doing with my time in terms of study. In terms of reading literature, I've never really taken to the Hobbit, Lord of the Rings trilogy and stuff like that, but I got a gift of those books, and so I'm reading The Hobbit, and I'm actually enjoying it quite a bit. And I kind of, first of all, the fact that there is pipe smoking, endears me to it. And I'm reading them right now, the Hobbit. I read it on my balcony in my hammock in the morning, and I'm thoroughly enjoying it. Sometimes I'm reading it while I'm smoking my pipe. I don't normally read and smoke my pipe at the same time, but I've noticed myself doing that the last couple of weeks. Every now and then I'll be reading and I'm smoking my pipe. Before, I would just kind of sit with my pipe, just kind of look out, maybe listen to some music. Always have a glass of H2O with me. Well, I think that's about it for this first edition. Hopefully it won't be another 10 months till I do another one. So, but as I run across stuff that I think might be interesting, I'll pipe up about it, so to speak. Anyway, I hope you have a great day. And if you're on the West Coast, you're enjoying our reprieve from that nasty heat wave. And have a pipe and relax. See you next time.